parsha in the Torah that of all the parshas, I always feel that Parsha's Korach is the one that more than any parsha, possibly more than any parsha, you just feel human nature in it, and you just feel so much as an indication of what people are capable of when they go to the bad. When they're having a, maybe we better close the windows. We're having a bad day. You just get an indication of how miserable a person could become, and you kind of sense your own life in it, because here I am. This is a lot of Korach coming out of me right now, because with a lot of good things to think about, I've been kvetching all day. And I've been kvetching about the bus, but the bus came eventually. At least we have buses, not a horse and wagon. And I've been kvetching about the air conditioning, but at least, Baruch Hashem, we're alive. It depends on how you look. Let's see what happens here. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kaos ben Levi. Korach takes. It doesn't say what he took. V'dasan v'aviram b'nei Eliyav. Dasan and Aviram are involved, so they're obviously up to no good. Ve'on ben Pelas b'nei Ruvain. So Rashi says, what does it mean he took? So it says, Lokach es atzmo l'tzad echad. He took himself off to the side. And the other opinions are, Lokach mekach rala atzmo. He made a bad business deal for himself here. But the word vayikach is actually an ambiguous word. If it doesn't say what he took. It just says Korach took. And Dasan and Aviram are there. Now what's interesting is Dasan and Aviram when Dasan and Aviram are around, so there's always trouble lurking, right? Whenever the Dasan and Aviram are, Dasan and Aviram are one of the biggest blessings for Moshe Rabbeinu. Believe it or not. Dasan and Aviram are one of the biggest blessings for Moshe Rabbeinu. It's strange, right? How could that be? The answer is because Dasan and Aviram, the minute they find something to criticize, they jump on it. Which means if they're quiet, that means he must be doing well. That means there's always a guy in the shul who's got it in for the rabbi. If the minute the rabbi, is one of those guys who's always saying, what did the rabbi do all day? What do you do all day, right? That guy. But if that guy's quiet, that means the rabbi must be doing pretty good right now, because if the minute he'd step out of line, he'd be jumping all over him. So Dasan and Aviram are really the standard for Moshe Rabbeinu, because he must be doing very well, because we haven't heard from them for a while. Now they join in with Korach. And if you stop and think about it, Korach is part of Yeshivat Levi. Dasan and Aviram are from the tribe of Ruvain, and they kind of bordered each other. Now very coincidentally, Dasan and Aviram must have been on the far edge of their camp, and Korach must have been on the far edge of his camp, that they happened to be next to each other. That's why Chazal say, Oy l'Rasha, Oy l'Shcheno. Woe, the word oy, by the way, the word oy is a word from nach. It's not just, you think it was just your Zaidi used to krechts, oy, when he sat down. Oy is actually a word, and that's where we get oy vey from. Oy vey, oy, because the pasuk says, lemi oy, lemi avoy. Who groans oy avoy, which became in the Yiddish oy vey? Who is it who starts moaning and groaning oy vey? So the pasuk continues to talk about somebody somebody who's been drinking a lot of alcohol. Somebody who's been drinking a lot, so eventually gets to the point where he's because he's got a hangover. Sorry, I've been drinking a lot. So the what do you call it? That's where oy. It's not just a Yiddish expression. It's not just like oy. It's actually a pasuk. The pasuk says, Oy l'Rasha, oy l'Shcheno. Woe to the wicked man and woe to his neighbor. Korach and Dasan and Aviram, they find each other and they end up getting in trouble together. Now, I get all choked up from this parsha. So what happens is over here, it's not a coincidence. Korach must have been living on the edge of his tribe. Dasan and Aviram are on the edge of their tribe, and they kind of meet each other. What does that tell you about them as people? Why are you living on the edge? Why are you living at the end? That means they don't seem to be like getting along with anybody. They're the guy in the neighborhood who's doing his own thing. He doesn't like this shul, and he doesn't like that community. He doesn't like the neighbors. There's like somebody he doesn't like. Each one, they seem to have this tendency. The common denominator is they got it in for Moshe Rabbeinu. So Korach and Dasan and Aviram, they get along with a man that owned that pot. Now what got Korach, what started him off? What riled Korach? So if you remember, just to get it clear, what lit his wagon over here? Moshe Rabbeinu's father was Amram. Korach's father is Yitzhar. Amram and Yitzhar are brothers. There's a third brother named Chevron. Yeah, they're cousins. Turns out Moshe and Korach are cousins. There's Chevron and Uziel. Those are four brothers. Amram, Yitzhar, Chevron, and Uziel. When Moshe Rabbeinu appointed somebody to be in charge of the leader of the tribe of Levi, so Moshe and Aaron are the sons of the oldest brother. Now, if a new position opens up, logically, who should get it? The son of the next brother. Yitzhar is the next oldest brother to Amram. Amram's two sons, Moshe and Aaron, got positions. Who should get the next position? The son of Yitzhar. And who's the oldest son of Yitzhar? Korach. But Moshe Rabbeinu skips over Yitzhar's son. He skips over Chevron's son. And by God's command, he picks the son of Uziel, Elitzaphan ben Uziel, who's a younger cousin, and puts him in charge of the tribe of Levi. At that point, Korach says, whoa, that's too much. It's one thing to tolerate Moshe and Aaron. But if there's a new position of honor available, who should be getting that position logically? I should be getting that position. It was the appointment of Elitzaphan ben Uziel, his younger cousin, that triggered him, that pushed him over. And at that point, Korach challenges Moshe Rabbeinu for the leadership of the people. That means that if Korach would have just gotten this one appointment, he would have been a good boy and sat in the corner. And you have over here, Korach, that's what Rashi brings down what it was that triggered him off. Now the question becomes, that appointment was already back in Parsha's, Parsha's Naso. Why did Korach wait until now to start the rebellion? Why did he wait until now?
Moshe was down.
What?
The spies.
Excellent, very good. That means, you got it. Timing is everything in life. Timing is. I used to have contests with my brother who could be more annoying. Right? I mean, obviously, you're looking at the still reigning world champion. He would concede that. And it was an art form because I had to know when I could get him to the point of tears, knowing I had to wait till he's good and vulnerable, then I'd zip in for the kill. I'd zoom in for the kill. You have to know when the mood is right, when the mood is not right. A shul rabbi has to know if you have a new project for your shul, you don't bring up a new project when the stock market is down and membership is not growing. You got to have timing. When things are going well, then you also say, hey guys, we're going to build a new wing for our shul. Then you'll see the membership drop again. But we'll try. You have to know when. So Korach knows. Listen, the Jewish people, they've been divided up into tribes, and the three on this side, and they're a camp and a military. That's not the time to try to start trouble. Everybody's in a good mood. Everybody's in a good mood. Oh, you just got a decree of 40 years in the desert and people are going to be dying. Now, Korach, everybody's in a bad mood anyway. The air conditioning wasn't working. Now's the time to start fetching because now everybody's in a bad mood. That's why Korach zips in. Now, this man, he goes with three people. He's got three partners over here. Dasan and Aviram, the sons of Eliav. And then there's another man named On ben Peles. And this is the first and last time we find him in the Parsha. On ben Peles disappears. Where does he go? On ben Peles isn't there. Only Dasan and Aviram, and eventually they're going to get swallowed up with Korach. But On ben Peles, we don't hear from him. What happened to On ben Peles? Is that what do you call it? Okay. So On ben Peles, we don't hear from him. So what happened to this On ben Peles? So the Medrash says, On ben Peles' wife saw On ben Peles as part of the original plot. And On ben Peles' wife, when he came home one day, she said to him, what's going on? Wives have an ability, they could read in your eyes that there's something up. Husband comes home and he's got this idea of borrowing a whole pile of money, pawning two of the children, and going for the big one. He was just talking to his friends in shul, and they got this thing, they're going to go for the big one. And he comes home, and the wife, hi, how you doing? Yeah, good. And the wife says, yeah, what's going on? He goes, oh, nothing. He sits down at the table, starts eating. After 10 minutes, she goes, what's going on. They have a way of sensing this. Yeah, well, I had this idea. I was talking to my friend Shlomi, and we had this idea. We're going to go borrow about a couple $100,000 and pawn a couple of the children. We got this investment. It's going to be good. We're not pawning children. You're not borrowing money. Sit down, go to work tomorrow, and don't get us bankrupt. And she ends up saving him, and most of the time, because most men without the wife would probably end up in prison. So she ends up saving him. So what happened over here? On Ben Pella says, what's going on? And On Ben Pella says, listen, I was talking with Korach and Dustin and Avir, and we got a rebellion going. So she says to her husband, she says, I understand. If Moshe the Rabbeinu is the leader, you're a follower. And if Korach's going to become the leader, you're still going to be a follower. What's in it for you? What do you get involved with this nonsense for? She said, yeah, but I swore to them that I'm going to join them. See, all of a sudden all of a sudden, but I gave them my word. I gave them a word. I won't rat out my buddies. I gave them my word. All of a sudden, the righteous criminal. That you're willing to sell drugs to school children. Yeah, that's okay. But you won't rat out your buddy because your code of honor. So she says, yeah, but I swore I'd be with them. She says, listen, let me get you out of this. Okay, listen. She gives him some wine. She gets him wine to drink, and he gets him tired, and he goes to sleep in the back of the tent. She puts him to sleep. First thing, you get your husband out of the way. And she puts him to sleep. The next day, Korach and the boys came to get him. She went out in front of the tent and she exposed her hair. And when Korach and the men came over and they saw the hair, they turned away very quickly and they left him, and they eventually get saved. And we see from Chazal you see that a good wife, a smart wife, saves her husband. And whose wife got Korach? Korach got in trouble? He was egged on by his wife. Korach got involved by his wife. When Mrs. Korach comes up, she says, hey, look what Moshe Rabbeinu did. He shaved bald. Remember the Levim were initiated into the service. He shaved bald. His own sister, his brother, he dressed up like the Kohen Gadol. He dressed him like a bride on her wedding day with all these ornaments and decorations. He shaved bald. He's making a mockery. You're going to take it just like that? So Korach comes and says to Mrs. Korach, what do you call it? Korach says gets involved in this rebellion. So the Medrash says, you see what the difference is between the two wives. One wife is the one who saves her husband. The other one is the one who brings her husband down. And there's actually a Medrash that says there was a couple, a righteous couple that got divorced. And the husband married a wicked woman, and he became a rasha. The wife married a rasha, and he became a tzaddik. And the Medrash says, Heveomer hakol mina isha. It's all from the woman. It all from the wife. Behind every successful man stands a line of people waiting to take his money. But behind every successful man, there's a wife. And that's true. The wife is the one. Nobody ever said behind every successful woman there stands a man. You ever notice that? Maybe because there aren't any successful women. No, just kidding. Yeah, right. Behind every successful man stands a woman. Why is that? Because it's the wife who's egging him on. So Korach, no. I want to tell you something unbelievable. Why did she pull down her hair? Why did she let down her hair? I mean, she could have gone out and just rolled back her sleeve up past the elbow, right? And Korach and his men, they come the next day and they're like, unsneas. I mean, look who we're talking about. Who was Korach? Korach is the guy who carried, you know that Korach carried their own Kodesh? He was one of the Levim that carried their own Kodesh. Korach was the richest Jew. The Gemara says there were two rich people in history, Haman and Korach. Korach, it says, he found, when they left Mitzrayim, and all the Jews had a lot of booty when they left Mitzrayim, Korach had 300 donkeys carrying the keys to his treasure houses. 300 donkeys loaded with the keys to his treasure houses, and the keys were made out of hide, not out of bone, so they were light. Big piles of keys, just as 300 donkeys. And there's even an expression in the vernacular, we didn't express, that guy is rich like Korach. We use that expression today, he's rich like Korach. So what did Korach have? Think about this. And now you see the parallel between him and Haman. Korach had wealth. He had honor. He had everything. And because of one thing more that he wanted, he couldn't live. He had no peace of mind. That's what took him down. He wasn't satisfied with what he had. What did Haman have? Haman is the vice president of the world. Haman is the wealthiest. He's wealthy. He paid Achashverosh off. Haman is Elon Musk, right? He's Achashverosh is what is Trump, and Haman is Elon Musk, and he's got everything, He's got everything. He's the second in command. And one lousy Jew won't bow down to him. And Haman says, I've got nothing. And that's his downfall. And that's Korach's downfall. Korach he had tremendous honor. He's one of the top Leviim. He's carrying their own Kodesh. What do Leviim carry their own? They didn't all carry their own Kodesh. He's extremely wealthy, but he can't take the fact that his younger cousin got the appointment. And that's his downfall. Gentlemen, we all have some Korach in us. Maybe not you. I certainly do. Anytime you're jealous, and even more than that, Korach was a man, he saw the revelation, he saw the splitting of the sea, he saw the revelation at Har Sinai. Korach was a very intelligent man. Rashi says, Shepikeach, a smart man. And he saw God's hand openly. Yet he's got one, as Rabbi Victor Miller puts it, there's one test in life that's harder than the test of belief. People say, I don't know if there's a God, I don't know if I believe, I don't believe. There's one test harder than belief. You know what that test is? The test of your own character, of your midos. You can know intellectually there's a God, yeah, but my envy, my jealousy is eating my kishkes over here. And Korach's jealousy, he couldn't overcome it. He couldn't overcome the jealousy. Since he couldn't overcome the jealousy, so Korach he ends up eternally, he goes down because he couldn't overcome it. Belief, no belief. But at the end of the day, the battle of midos, that's the hardest battle. Now, take a look at what Korach says. They arise before Moshe Rabbeinu and 250 men, the Siei Eda. These are the heads of the congregation. Kriei Moed. Men who are, how does Rashi, leaders of the assembly. Anshe Shem, men of the name. These are famous people. Some say, one of the first say, Anshe Shem means they knew how to handle Hashem's name. You know, the Shem HaMefurash? They knew God's, I think it's translated the ineffable name. These are serious players. Korach dupes them into a rebellion. Vayikolu al, pay attention carefully. Vayikolu al Moshe val Aaron, they gather on Moshe Aaron, vayomer aleim rav lachem, you've taken too much honor. Ki kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. Everybody's holy. Uvesocham Hashem, umadua tisnasu hakashem. Why are you lording yourself over the congregation? We're all holy. As George Orwell might have said, or all George Orwellberg, right? All men are created holy, but some are more holy than others. So, yeah, we're all holy. Now, listen to the irony. Korach says, listen, we're all holy. Why should you be leaders? We don't need leaders here. Unless I'm the leader. You hear the irony of Korach? Yeah, we don't need a leader. We're all holy. And what if you would have said to Korach, yeah, you're right, but you be the leader? Oh, well, listen, okay, if you insist, then I guess I'll have to be. Now, look at Rashi for a second. Rashi says, somebody had a question. I think somebody, go ahead, yeah.
About Pilat's wife, her hair. What was the wife?
We're going to come back to that in a second. Yeah, we're going to get there. Why did she let her hair down? Rapunzel, let down your hair. Why'd she let her hair down? Why she could have pulled up her sleeve? An elbow. Why'd she have to let her hair down? What's with the hair? Oh, we'll see a second. Take a look at Rashi. So Rashi says, where is it? I think it's on Pasuk Beis. Take a look on the left column. Take a look at the left column, and it's 3 lines from the top. It says Rashi, "V'hilbishon talisos shekulan tcheles." He clothed all of these leaders in garments that were completely tcheles. The garments were completely blue. Bo v'amdu liftei Moshe. Then they came and they stood before Moshe Rabbeinu. So he put a blue cape or a blue poncho on all these people, tcheles. Amru lo, talis shekulo tcheles. The 4th line from the top, left column. A talis that's completely tcheles. Chayeves b'tzitzis o petura. Do you have to put a string of tzitzis on it or not? Amar lahem chayeves. So Moshe said, yeah, it's chayev. You got to put tzitzis on. Hischilu lisachek olav. They started laughing at him. Efsher talis shel min acher. If you have a completely white talis, chut echad shel tchelis potra. One string of tchelis exempts a regular talis. If it's white, all you need is one string. Zu shekulo tchelis. So if this one is completely tchelis, lo tiftar etzatva doesn't exempt itself. If one little string takes care of an entire white garment, so if the entire garment is tchelis, what do you need a string for? That's their claim against Moshe Rabbeinu. And then the Medrash says that they also said to Moshe Rabbeinu, a house that's full of svarim, do you need a mezuzah on the door? Moshe said, yes. So he said, what a joke. He said, if one mezuzah, one little mezuzah takes care of an entire room, so if you got a room full of svarim, what do you need a mezuzah for? Ooh, are they from? What a good kasha. A good from kasha they're asking, right? Wah. Korach and his men, they're just so devout. What were they really saying with these questions? What were they really saying? Why these two questions? First of all, we just had at the end of the last Parsha was tzitzis. Yesterday we did tzitzis. So why are they asking these questions? What were they getting at with these two, coincidentally, these two questions? What were they getting at? What are they getting at? They say, the whole congregation is tchelis. The whole congregation is holy. That's what they said. Kol eida kulam kedoshim. We're all tchelis. Why do you need one string to stand out? You. Why should one stand out? We're all holy. Why should you stand out? And the same thing when it comes to the mezuzah. You got a whole house full of svarim. Why do you need one mezuzah? Why should you be the mezuzah? Hear what they're saying? Whether they're coming at him and that's always when it's most dangerous, when it's a religious attack. Why do you have, we're all holy, why should you stand out? That's Moshe. Now, what is Moshe Rabbeinu's response? So you take a look in Pasuk Hey, watch this is unbelievable. And Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, Vayishma Moshe vayipol al ponav. Moshe hears, he falls on his face. We're going to come back to this in a little while. Vaydaber al Korach v'chol adoso lemor. He says to Korach and his congregation, Boker v'yoda Hashem es asher lo v'es hakorov v'ikri v'elav v'es asher yivchar bo yakrov. Hashem will let us know in the morning who he's chosen. 822, second line from the top. This you have to see, gentlemen. Zos asu. I want you to do the following. Kichu lachem machtos, take fire pans, korach v'chol adoso. And then he says that you're going to put in a fire, you're going to put in ketoras, and we're going to have a showdown tomorrow, the ketoras showdown, to see who Hashem has chosen. But I want to show you a very intriguing Rashi. Look at Rashi, where Rashi says, on the right column on 822, he says to take fire pans. Now if you take a look at towards the bottom of the right column of Rashi, machtos. Everybody see that? Where it says take fire pans. So look what Rashi gives us a lesson in housewares here. It says Rashi, kelim shechosin ben b'chachom. Everybody see that? If you don't see, you see where that is? Machtos? Machtos are kelim shechosin ben b'chachom. They're utensils that you use in order to dig at coals. V'yesh lahem beis yad, and they have a handle. Well, I hope so. I mean, if you use a fire pan without a handle, metal gets hot. But why is Rashi giving us a lesson here on how to make a fire pan? Number one. Number two, we've had machtos mentioned before in the Torah, in Parsha Tetzaveh, I think. And there Rashi doesn't tell us what a machta. How come over here Rashi feels the need to tell us there's a fire? Take a machta, and it's got a handle. Very interesting. So I think that what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying to them, he was responding to their claims. Why does a talus need a piece of tzitzis? And why does a house full of svarim need a mezuzah? So what did Moshe say? All right, let's have a contest with machtos. Kichu lachem machtos. Take a machta as an example. Even a machta, which is a fire pan, but it has a handle. The handle stands out from the rest of the fire pan. Everything has to have a leader. Everything has to have one who's going to be the leader. You can't have a situation where it isn't with one who's guiding the rest. Even a fire pan has, Rashi's pointing out that Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Korach, take a fire pan, fellas, and look carefully at a fire pan, and that'll answer your question. So Korach comes to Moshe and says, everybody's holy. Kol eida kulam kedoshim. What does he want more than anything else? What position does Korach want? He wants to be the Kohen Gadol. His axe to grind is with Aaron. He wants to be the Kohen Gadol. That's really the position of glory. You're wearing the chest plates, you're wearing the gemstones. So I'll tell you an interesting thing. This answers your question, Al. Do you know that the Gemara in Yuma and Daf Mem Zayin says there's a woman named Kimchis. And this woman named Kimchis, she had 7 sons who were all Kohanim Gedolim. One of them was a Kohen Gadol. One son was a Kohen Gadol. Then when he became disqualified for a day, his brother became the Kohen Gadol. And somehow she had 7 sons who were Kohanim Gedolim. So the Chachamim saw, the Gemara says at the end of the Chachamim saw, there's no coincidence. One woman has 7 sons who are Kohanim Gedolim. You know, it's like one woman who has 7 sons who all became electrical engineers. You know, something's going on of like, yeah, hey lady, where did the brains come from? You know, if you see that somebody's got brains in the family. So 7 sons became Kohanim Gedolim. So they said to Kimchis, how did your sons all become Kohanim Gedolim? What did you do to merit having 7 sons? Come on, what's the secret, lady? So Kimchis said, never in my life did the walls of my house, my hair was never exposed. The walls of my house never saw the hair on my head. That means her level of tznius was such that, what is tznius? Tznius means that you're keeping it hidden and away from everybody else's eyes. Even the walls didn't see the hair on your head. Where does the Kohen end up going? The Kohen Gadol ends up going into the Holy of Holies, which is away from the eyes of everybody. Nobody sees what's going on in the Holy of Holies. Mida keneged mida, because she kept her hair covered, she merited having 7 sons who are Kohanim Gedolim. Obviously, the Chachamim, they must have had some tradition in the Jewish people. There's in other words, hair is the green kryptonite of the Kohen Gadol. You want to be a Kohen Gadol, stay away from women's exposed hair. That's why she goes out of her tent and exposes her hair. She knows Korach is after. What's going to drive him away faster than anything else? If you want to be the Kohen Gadol, he's walking along, let's go get Own Bed Palace. They're walking towards the tent, and all of a sudden, whoa, hair, where's the green kryptonite? Get out in the other direction. And that's why she lets down her hair rather than expose her elbow. That's the allergy for the Kohen Gadol. And that's what Kohen wants more than anything. That's what Korach wants more than anything else. Now, I'm going to tell you something that you're not going to believe. I mean, maybe you will believe it. I mean, you know, I am a rabbi, you should believe me, but not necessarily. You could believe me, but don't lend me money. What do you call it? Rashi says over here, they gather against, the Torah says they gather on Moshe Rabbeinu, and it says in Pasuk Daled, let's go back to Pasuk Daled now. By the way, one of the telltale signs that they're up to trouble, that they're up to no good, I heard this from Rabbi Rakbel, Zichrono Livracha. What were they saying to Moshe Rabbeinu with the talus and with the mezuzah? With the talus and with the throne? What were they saying? A talus like that doesn't need tzitzis. A room like that doesn't need a mezuzah. In Judaism, anytime somebody comes along with an idea to reduce halachic requirements, then you know that it's not healthy. If it's reform, conservative, they're reducing the halachic requirements. Yeah, this talus doesn't need tzitzis. This room doesn't need a what do you go? Oh, here's trouble. I smell trouble. Because you never, in rabbinic law, by rabbinic law, most of the time, it didn't make our life easier. Oh, yeah, meat and milk, you can mix them together. No. It's usually 6 hours over here, and you can't move a pencil on Shabbos because it's a lot of can'ts over here. If it's all of a sudden, let's make it easier for you. You could drive to shul on Shabbos for the sake of Judaism. And men and women could sit together in shul for the sake of Judaism, because chas v'shalom that a man wants to, what couple would want to go to shul and be away from each other for more than 10 minutes? Because they just, till you see them leave shul in separate cars. Right? But in shul, they got to sit together. I can't daven without being next to my wife. Yeah, most of the week you try to avoid her like the plague. But all of a sudden, it can't be because we got to make sure everybody sees that we're all hunky-dory over here. Yeah, what happens Sunday when you're watching the football game and she wants to go out? All of a sudden, you don't know her. No, all of a sudden, I have no idea who this lady is. I got all day long, I'm watching football today. Get out of here, lady. Go shopping, do what you want, but leave me alone. Yeah, but I wanted to go visit my relative. Well, not today. There's a college football game and I'm watching it. Forget about it. All of a sudden in shul, they got to take down the mechitza. As soon as it gets to take down, I'll get to 1 second. As soon as it gets to take down, we know there's trouble coming. It can't be a healthy thing. Now, take a look at 1 second. Hey, I'll get to you 1 second. Vayishma Moshe vayipol alpanav. Moshe hears it and he falls on his face. So there's a medrash here. The Gemara says, you know what Moshe heard? They went around telling people, you better warn your wife. Tell your wife not to be alone, secluded with Moshe Rabbeinu. Like the sota where the husband says to his wife, don't be secluded with Ploni. Don't be alone with Ploni. I don't like, there's been some hanky-panky. I don't like the way you're playing footsies under the table over there. He warns the wife. It says, the men in the Jewish people warned their wives, don't be alone with Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? How did they get to that point? They warned their wives, don't be alone with Moshe Rabbeinu? You suspect Moshe Rabbeinu? So I'll tell you what happened over here. Okay, yeah, what were we going to ask? Go ahead.
Why is Korach going after Moshe, not Aaron, if he wants?
Oh, very good, because he wants to be the Kohen Gadol, but the Gemara says he challenged the whole leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu. That appointment came from you. Who told you to appoint him? And who appointed you? Once you're on the roll, he's like the proverbial child. Ultimately, he's like the proverbial overtired child who doesn't know what he wants. No matter what he gives now, he throws it away now. I mean, ever see a 2-year-old who's overtired? Nothing's good. And Korach doesn't even know what he wants. But what he really wants is to be the Kohen Gadol. He challenges Aaron, but ultimately he's undermining Moshe Rabbeinu's good. The Gemara says that he's challenging the whole giving of the Torah from Sinai. I don't believe any of this, that God told you what to do. So it's massive. But the one thing that could have taken care of it, give him the Kohen Gadol, all of a sudden everything went, Torah Sinai. Yeah, I'm all Torah Sinai. I'm so Torah Sinai. That's the thing that he wanted, but he's undermining the whole appointment of Aaron. You're saying God told you to appoint Aaron. Well, who made you the leader to get the appointment from God, and so on and so forth. At one level, they say that Moshe Rabbeinu, that Moshe, what some of them before say Moshe Rabbeinu, he was accusing Moshe Rabbeinu of influencing God to have Aaron become the Kohen Gadol. I know God appointed him because you influenced God. Who told you to do that? They're different opinions. Okay. So the Gemara, the Medrash says, Shechashdu ha'esh ish. They suspected Moshe Rabbeinu of adultery. And then every man went and told his wife, don't get involved with Moshe Rabbeinu. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu separated from his own wife out of Kedusha. What happened over? How can you suspect Moshe Rabbeinu? It's one thing if it's, some other guy from Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says that they suspected Moshe Rabbeinu was upset because they suspected him ha'esh ish. They suspected him about taking a married woman. Moshe Rabbeinu, isn't that preposterous? Absolutely preposterous. So I think that this Korach is a very, very sly person. Korach is right. Kedusha always represents, Kedusha always has to do with the area of morality and immorality. That's what Kedusha is. We are an Am Kadosh. When we talk about, like I said yesterday, Kedusha, Hariat Mekudeshesli, you're separated from all other men. The whole concept of marriage is Kedusha, and morality is Kedusha. So what Korach knows, I got a problem here. Korach says, I put yourself in Korach's position, I got a problem here. My problem is that I'm trying to make a claim that everybody is Kadosh. But we all know that Moshe Rabbeinu is more Kadosh. Now, and obviously Moshe Rabbeinu, his face is glowing, he came down from Sinai. There's this aura of Kedusha around Moshe Rabbeinu. The only way I'm possibly going to make this thing work is if I could break this aura of Kedusha of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, how am I going to break that aura of Kedusha? Nowadays, it's not hard to understand this, by the way, because all you got to do is accuse somebody on social media of anything, and he's verschmutzt. Even if we prove later on that he didn't do anything, and there was no smoke, and there was no fire, there was no nothing. But you farshmutz them, that's all we got to do. So Moshe Rabbeinu is in his own category. Moshe Rabbeinu occupies a place among the Jewish people. He's off limits. There's everybody and there's Moshe Rabbeinu. So what does Korach do? Korach, I'm sure, didn't just walk over to somebody and say, hey, by the way, I think Moshe Rabbeinu is with married women. I think Korach was much more subtle. I think Korach was, after minyan one morning, he probably walked up to two guys at the back table who were taking off their tefillin. And he said, hey guys, I have a problem. You know what, forget it, I'm not going to say anything. No, you know what, I have to say, I really shouldn't say this. It must be ridiculous. Yesterday I was walking past Moshe Rabbeinu's tent. And I saw a woman, she went to ask him a question, a halachic question about no, you know what, guys, forget it, I didn't say anything. I can't even, you know what, I have to, because otherwise it's not right to be quiet. You know what, and there's always, two guys are at the table, and then there's that third guy who's pretending not to listen. He's the guy wrapping his tefillin over and over. He's pretending not to even hear the gossip, and he's the one who's hearing every single word. Or it could have been in the mikveh too. Go and be in the mikveh where that third guy is, furiously twirling his payas while this guy, he's listening. There's nothing like two guys talking in the mikveh, a third guy with a towel around his midriff. Listen. So Korach says, I don't know. I saw a lady go to ask Moshe Rabbeinu a question. It seemed to me, I don't know. It seemed like she was. It just seemed like she was in his tent. It seemed like she was in his tent a little bit longer. Forget it, guys. Forget it. I didn't say anything. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you at minyan. I'll see you at mincha. I can't believe I even said anything. But he said it. And then word gets out to her. And what's happened is, all of a sudden that aura, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're even saying this about, and then that third guy goes home. Oh, he's hot now. That third guy who was wrapping his tefillin. He said, Feivel, you're not going to believe what I heard. Moshe Rabbeinu and an Eish Esish. And eventually word gets out that Moshe Rabbeinu, there's talk. Nobody knows anything for a fact, but it breaks the aura. Now Korach can say we're all kadoshim. He shatters this aura around Moshe Rabbeinu. But it's even deeper, gentlemen. It's even deeper. Because eventually he comes back to Korach. And eventually somebody comes up to Korach and says, or those two guys in shul, when Korach even starts talking about it. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu with a married woman, how dare you talk like that about Moshe Rabbeinu? And Korach says, chas v'shalom. I didn't literally mean a married woman. How dare you think that that's what I meant? In the relationship between God and the Jewish people, what's the metaphorical relationship? A husband and a wife. What gave Moshe Rabbeinu the right to take the Jewish people, the leadership of the Jewish people? That's what I meant. So Korach comes into a room full of guys and says, Moshe Rabbeinu, what gives it? Moshe Rabbeinu took a married woman. You mechutzav, how dare you? Chas v'shalom. I didn't mean literally a married woman. I meant, but the words that third guy wrapping his tefillin, what did he hear? Moshe Rabbeinu took a married woman. Then he's off. He didn't hear the explanation. And what Korach protects himself by saying, I meant metaphorically. He took the Jewish people and he had no right. What does he succeed in doing? You've broken the aura of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now we could deal with an accusation, and we could say, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. Yeah.
Miriam got saras for much less.
Miriam got saras for much less. That's correct. Korach is probably protecting himself in some way that he's got. It's a good question. So if Korach was doing this, so why didn't they get saras? Should everybody who's talking? Could be they're saying, listen, we're not saying he did something. We're not saying, we're just concerned. We're just concerned that there may be a little bit, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't want you to be alone with Moshe Rabbeinu. It's a good question you're asking. I don't have a great answer for that. According to that medrash, why did he get saras? It's a good question. I don't have an answer. At the end of the day, that's what the medrash says that they spread. Okay. Now, Moshe Rabbeinu is upset, and what Moshe Rabbeinu realizes is that we're going to have to put a stop to this once and for all. We have to put a stop to this. Because I can't have my authority challenged, because when my authority is challenged, then you're challenging the entire legitimacy of the Torah. Because if you're saying that I wasn't chosen by God, so I wasn't chosen by God to get the Torah from Sinai either. So you're challenging the entire tradition of Torah. Okay, we'll have to stop here because they're coming out with lunch. All right, we'll continue tomorrow.